The film opens with Leavonne Cade, a man sleeping in his car. He brushes his teeth and heads to work at the Garcia family's construction site. A co-worker offers him food, which he reluctantly accepts. Leavonne then gathers the crew to assign tasks for the day. In the construction office, Jenny Garcia asks her parents for $1,640 to fund a celebration for her semester's end, presenting a detailed budget. Her father hesitates, but eventually agrees. Leavonne takes paperwork from Jenny and steps outside, where he intervenes as two mobsters harass the co-worker who shared food. Leavonne disarms and intimidates the men, scattering reinforcements with a thrown bucket of cement and a seized gun. The co-worker, stunned, is dismissed by Leavonne. Jenny later questions Leavonne about the fight, joking about learning self-defense. She brings him food, and he asks her to keep the incident secret. Leavonne visits Roth, his late wife's father, to pick up his daughter, Mary. Roth coldly accuses Leavonne of being dangerous and demands Mary stay. Leavonne leaves quietly, taking Mary to a cafe. He gifts her a photo of her with her mother, and Mary confesses anger at her mom's abandonment. Leavonne listens supportively. Meeting his lawyer, Leavonne learns custody visits are restricted to Roth's house. The lawyer warns untreated PTSD could reduce visitation hours. Leavonne reveals his wife died by suicide during his military deployment, but vows to keep fighting for custody. That night, Jenny and friends use fake IDs to celebrate. Leavonne rents a cramped, dilapidated house with a dirty bed. Disappointed by his living conditions, Leavonne sits quietly, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Jenny's group dances, tipsy from drinks. A man films the girls from an upstairs room. His girlfriend grows jealous, but he claims the footage is for his boss, calming her with a kiss. Later, Jenny and friends go to another bar. The bartender offers a table if she gives her name. After complying, Jenny helps her friends. The bartender secretly alerts Viper. One friend falls ill, rushing to the bathroom with Jenny. As Jenny leaves the restroom, Viper grabs her. His girlfriend helps hustle her to a waiting car. Leavonne arrives at the Garcia office, where the distraught parents report Jenny's disappearance. They're unsure if she ran off or was abducted, explaining she vanished Friday night. Police refuse to help. They beg Leavonne to intervene, offering $50,000, but he firmly refuses and leaves. Leavonne visits Gunny, who jokes by nearly hitting him with an arrow. They discuss Jenny, and Gunny urges Leavonne to help. Reluctantly, Leavonne agrees. At the Garcia home, Carla directs Leavonne to Garcia, who is drunk and surrounded by whiskey and home videos. Leavonne shares his own loss, vows to find Jenny, and calls their family his own. Garcia finds fragile hope in his promise. Reviewing evidence in his car, Leavonne zooms in, spotting the bar's name Jenny visited. He investigates, recognizing the bartender exchanging items with strangers. In the bathroom, he finds a severed security camera wire, photographs it, and identifies the bar's sign in a background shot. Later, Leavonne secretly attaches a GPS tracker to the bartender's car as he drives off, letting him track it secretly. Leavonne confronts the bartender at his house, gun drawn. The bartender reaches for a weapon but freezes when Leavonne shows Jenny's photo. Leavonne drags him to the bathroom and tortures him. A friend intervenes, but Leavonne kills them all, takes cash, and spots a Russian Mafia tattoo on one, escalating the stakes. He flees. Jenny is tied up, weak and tearful. The next morning, Leavonne spots Wolo arriving at the bartender's house with bodyguards. Leavonne surveils Wolo, who rages over lost money. A guard suggests internal conflict, but Wolo slaps him. A cleaning team sanitizes the scene. Leavonne briefly speaks to his daughter, Mary, then tails Wolo home. Hidden in nearby woods, he watches Wolo argue with his wife. She pulls a knife and leaves. Leavonne sneaks inside, ambushes Wolo with hot coffee and kicks, captured on security footage. Wolo wakes tied by the pool, threatening Leavonne with his family's power. Leavonne slaps him, tosses cash, demands Jenny's location. When Wollo refuses, Leavonne submerges him in the pool until he stops struggling. Reviewing a secret recording, Leavonne translates Russian dialogue, identifying Dimmy's link to Jenny. Wollo's brother arrives with bodyguards, reviews footage, and grows suspicious of Dimi. He orders his sons, also his guards, to find Leavonne. Jenny pleads her innocence to a masked captor who ignores her story and threatens her with a gun. Leavonne contacts an old acquaintance, feigning DEA interest to learn about Dimi. Warned that Dimi is a deadly drug dealer, Leavonne persists and gets his bar location. Leavonne enters the bar, orders a drink, and catches a woman's attention. She spots his gun on security feed and alerts Dougie. Dougie leads Leavonne to Dutch, their boss. Dutch questions him, but the woman accuses Leavonne of being a cop. Dutch orders a search. Mafia enforcers attack Leavonne, but he defeats them. Dutch, impressed, asks if he's ex-military. Leavonne and Dutch negotiate a drug deal. Later, Leavonne meets Dougie and the woman at a cafe. She points a gun at him, but Leavonne calmly hands over cash. Dougie says they'll contact him. Leavonne knocks Dougie's food down and leaves. In his car, Leavonne finds the drugs from Dutch but discards them as incorrect. Viper and Artemis stuff unconscious Jenny into a suitcase. Their client arrives angry and Jenny bites him when she wakes. He orders them out. Dutch calls Leavonne demanding a suit and cash for a meeting. Leavonne complies. At the bar, Dutch takes his money and Demi arrives, interrogating Leavonne. Satisfied, they give him another incorrect drug bag, which Leavonne discards. Reviewing the bartender's phone, Leavonne finds a photo of Jenny with Viper in the background, a key lead. Artemis spots Leavonne on cameras, alerting the crew. He ambushes a guard, escapes on a motorcycle, and evades pursuers until a car blocks him. He crashes into a police cruiser, who hand him to the Mafia brothers. Leavonne wakes up tied up in the back seat of a car, with two Mafia members interrogating him about Demi. Though his hands are bound, Leavonne stays calm. Suddenly, he lashes out, starting a fight right there in the moving car. Despite being restrained, he manages to overpower both men. The driver loses control and crashes. Leavonne kills the two Mafia henchmen, frees himself, and pushes the car into a river to hide the evidence before slipping away. It turns out the men Leavonne killed were the sons of Simon, the crime organization's most powerful boss. When Simon learns his sons are dead, grief and fury overwhelm him. In a final ritual, he kisses their hands goodbye. Meanwhile, Viper and Artemis rush to see Demi, who's in the middle of a party. Noticing them, Demi quietly tells his entourage of women to leave. He's furious, grabbing Viper by the throat and warning him how lucky he is to still be breathing. Demi shows them a photo of Jenny and threatens Artemis, promising to cut off her finger if they fail. He orders them to kill Jenny, demanding they keep their client happy. Stressed out by the death of the Mafia brothers, Demi shouts at Viper and Artemis, and without another word, they quickly leave. Later on, Simon calls a meeting, summoning all the Mafia leaders. Simon gathers the other crime bosses to lay out what's happened, revealing that Leavonne is the one who killed his sons. One of the bosses introduces his two most trusted enforcers, promising they'll help track down Demi. During the party, a girl tries to snap a photo, but a Mafia thug roughly shoves her away. Suddenly, Simon arrives, flanked by his guards. As soon as a warning shot echoes through the room, the music cuts off and everyone falls silent. One of Simon's guards strides over and kicks Demi in the face. Simon bitterly tells him that his father died in a swimming pool. Demi shows no reaction, even remarking that it's probably for the best. Then Simon delivers another blow. Demi's own sons have been murdered. This cracks Demi's composure. He panics, clearly blindsided. When shown a photo of Leavonne, Demi is visibly shaken. He explains he only had brief dealings with Leavonne in the past, showing Simon Leavonne's driver's license as proof. Simon warns Demi that Leavonne is now after him, then leaves. Afterwards, Simon's guards start digging into Leavonne's history and quickly discover he used to be a soldier. The following morning, Roth is out getting his exercise when those same Mafia heavies show up at his house. Around the same time, Leavonne gets a call from Mary's school. They tell him nobody's come to pick her up. Alarmed, Leavonne hurries to the school and collects Mary himself. During the drive, Mary asks about her grandfather. She mentions she's texted him a bunch of times and even called, but hasn't heard back. Jokingly, she teases Leavonne, asking if he killed her grandfather, then laughs. Leavonne gently reassures her, encouraging they drop by Roth's place. When they arrive, Leavonne is horrified to see Roth's house in flames. He tells Mary to wait safely outside and charges into the burning building. Inside, he manages to find Roth and drags him out just before the house collapses, saving his life. Afterwards, a shaken Roth blames Leavonne for everything, insisting that trouble followed them because of Leavonne. He believes the Mafia was looking for Leavonne and set his house on fire. Mary steps in and reminds her grandfather that Leavonne was the one who just pulled him from the flames. Roth nods, and Leavonne promises to take care of Mary, urging Roth to get checked at the hospital. Before leaving, Roth thanks Leavonne for saving him. To keep Mary safe, Leavonne brings her to Gunny's place. Gunny, sensing just how deep Leavonne's in, asks if he really thinks he can still rescue Jenny. Leavonne, certain and steadfast, assures him that he won't give up. Gunny leads him into a room lined with weapons and tells Leavonne to take what he needs. Leavonne picks his gear, packs his bag, and gets ready to go. Mary sees him with the bag and can tell what's coming. She asks to go with him, but Leavonne gently explains she'll stay with Gunny until it's over. Understanding but worried, Mary says she doesn't want him to get hurt. Leavonne gives her a badge for reassurance, promising he'll return, and the two share a hug before he leaves. Meanwhile, Viper and Artemis are transporting Jenny, planning to kill her. Jenny silently prays for an escape, while Artemis looks increasingly uneasy about the plan. At the crucial moment, as Artemis points a gun at her, Jenny lashes out, catching Artemis off guard with a kick. The car veers out of control and crashes. Thinking fast, Jenny slips out, bolts into the woods, and manages to untie herself as she disappears among the trees, all while Viper and Artemis shout after her in vain. Frustrated and exhausted, Viper and Artemis lose track of Jenny in the woods. Eventually, Jenny reaches a road and frantically waves down a passing police car. As she introduces herself, the officer acts as if she was expecting her, saying she knows exactly who Jenny is and what's going on. To Jenny's horror, instead of offering protection, the officer drives her straight back to Viper and Artemis and hands her over, not hesitating for a second. Just as Viper and Artemis are preparing to kill Jenny, they receive a video call from their client. He demands to see her and insists she must stay alive for a second meeting, this time upping his offer to $1 million. Viper acknowledges but comments that Jenny's dirty from being on the run. The client, unfazed, says that's precisely what he wants, then ends the call. Meanwhile, Demi is at home, high and irritable, taking his frustrations out on his girlfriend by insulting her and throwing money at her in anger. Silently, Leavonne arrives outside and stealthily eliminates the guards with a knife. As Leavonne enters, Demi grabs his girlfriend as a human shield, threatening to kill her if Leavonne comes any closer. Leavonne responds with deadly precision, shooting Demi in the hand and forcing him to drop the weapon. He instructs the girlfriend to take the cash and get out fast. She grabs the money and bolts. Leavonne approaches Demi with a photo of Jenny and demands information. Demi glances at it and claims he doesn't know her, then questions why Leavonne is going to such lengths for Jenny. Leavonne explains it's because he promised. He swore to Jenny he'd come back for her, and he always keeps his word. Realizing he has no choice, Demi ultimately agrees to reveal Jenny's location on the condition that Leavonne lets him go afterward. Leavonne agrees, but insists that Demi accompany him to the address. On the way, Leavonne shows Demi a picture of Viper. Demi confirms he recognizes him and starts ranting about Viper. Annoyed, Leavonne punches Demi in the face. They arrive at the building where Jenny is being held, but before entering, Leavonne questions Demi about his involvement in the criminal racket. Demi confesses Viper would send him photos of attractive young women, and together they arranged meetings, selling the girls to wealthy clients for huge sums of money. Leavonne, disgusted, tells Demi that people like him can never truly understand the consequences unless they have their own daughters. With that, Leavonne kills Demi. Inside, a lavish party is underway with dozens of guests. Leavonne works his way through the house, staying in the shadows and using a silenced pistol to eliminate guards one after another. Meanwhile, Dutch and his heavily armed crew are inside too, waiting for Leavonne, ready for a showdown. Elsewhere, Jenny sits at a piano, playing softly to herself. Viper and Artemis enter, forcing her into another room and tying her up. Artemis contacts the client, informing him Jenny is ready for whatever is planned next. At that moment, Leavonne launches his attack, tossing explosives into the main hall and triggering chaos. Gunshots ring out, panicked partygoers scatter, and Dutch gives an order to hunt Leavonne down. Armed men on motorcycles pour into the compound. Leavonne fights with ruthless efficiency, picking them off methodically and never losing his composure, despite the flying bullets and chaos all around. In the middle of the battle, Leavonne faces Dougie in brutal hand-to-hand combat. In the midst of their struggle, Dutch accidentally shoots Dougie. Immediately after, Dutch and Leavonne engage in a ferocious knife fight. Leavonne gains the upper hand, stabbing Dutch in the chest, and finally plunging Dutch's own hand, still gripping the blade, into his throat, killing him. Without wasting a moment, Leavonne rushes to the room where Jenny is being kept. He instantly shoots the man guarding her, disarms Viper, and creates an opening, giving Jenny the chance she needs. Jenny seizes her opportunity, lashing out at Artemis and wrapping her legs tightly around her neck, choking her into unconsciousness. Meanwhile, Leavonne finishes off Viper for good and quickly helps untie Jenny. Suddenly, Simon bursts onto the scene with a squad of Mafia gunmen, all heavily armed. As the police arrive, the Mafia unleashes a hail of bullets, riddling the squad car and setting it on fire. Without missing a beat, Simon and his men storm inside, guns blazing as they target Leavonne and Jenny. But Leavonne keeps a cool head amid the chaos. Using the building's security camera feed, he tracks the mobsters' movements. He takes down one of Simon's men with a well-placed shot to the chest, then hurls an explosive that eliminates another. With the attackers defeated, Leavonne lowers his weapon and, together with Jenny, escapes into the night. From a distance, Simon watches them slip away, powerless to do anything. Realizing he's lost, he calls a powerful ally and reports the fiasco. Though he agrees to let Leavonne go this time, he vows their paths will cross again. Once the call ends, Simon vents his rage with a desperate, angry shout. Leavonne brings Jenny home at last. Her parents are overcome with relief and joy, sobbing tears of happiness as they rush to embrace their daughter, wrapping her up in their arms. At long last, Jenny is safe. With his promise fulfilled, Leavonne heads back to Gunny's house, where Mary spots him and races into his arms, hugging him tightly. Reunited with his closest friends, Leavonne finally sits down to share a quiet, well-earned meal, surrounded by those who matter most.